Imagine for a second if uh, the fundamental laws of physics, things like gravity, mass, electromagnetic frequencies.
The stuff that keeps us on the ground.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Imagine if those laws didn't just apply to apples falling from trees or like the Wi-Fi signal in your house.
Yeah, what if they actually responded to your behavior?
Yes. Specifically, imagine if your physical density and the actual electromagnetic waves you emit were entirely dictated by, well, how greedy you are.
It's a completely wild concept, right?
It really is. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we're throwing the traditional boundaries between, hard science and spirituality completely out the window.
We really are, because we're looking at this framework that takes these mechanical, unforgiving rules of physics and maps them directly onto the human soul.
And even onto the destiny of entire nations, which is, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
Oh, absolutely.
So our mission today is to unpack this highly specific, really fascinating philosophical lecture. It was originally delivered in Ulsan, South Korea on July 6, 2025.
Right.
We're going to explore this whole architecture of a worldview that blends spiritual evolution, the literal physics of human behavior, and what the source calls the destiny of the Hongik Ingen.
And we'll be getting into the specific electromagnetic frequency of a righteous life, too. Plus that crucial evolutionary leap between just being a human and actually being a person.
Yeah, that distinction is huge. But before we jump in, we should probably give you a quick caveat.
Definitely. Because this source makes some incredibly bold, geographically specific claims about South Korea's historical and spiritual role in the world.
Right, that is an important point to flag. We need to be really clear with you that our goal today is just to explore this speaker's original philosophical framework completely impartially.
Yeah, we aren't here to endorse these viewpoints.
Exactly. And we aren't validating any claims about national superiority or anything like that. We're treating this objectively because dissecting the source material is really the only way to truly understand the mechanics of this wild, complex worldview.
We just want to figure out exactly how this system claims to operate.
Right. And the mechanics are what make this so compelling in the first place.
Because where this discussion ultimately leads is, well, it's the idea that achieving your true spiritual potential doesn't just make you a better person emotionally.
No, it goes way beyond that.
Right. In this framework, it physically alters your energetic density. It changes the wave output of your existence, and ultimately it determines whether or not you remain bound by Earth's gravity.
Defying gravity through spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
It is a staggering destination.
Truly.
But before we can understand the physics of how a soul actually becomes weightless, we kind of have to understand the who, right?
Yeah, like who does the source believe is tasked with this evolution?
Exactly. And the lecture introduces this concept of the Hongik Ingen. In this framework, these are individuals whose fundamental growth period has completely ended.
So they're done learning.
Right. They are no longer meant to be learning or, taking from society. Their sole mechanical function now is to use their inherent energy to broadly benefit humanity.
And this is where we hit that very specific geographic claim we mentioned.
Or the South Korea connection.
Yeah, the source argues that South Korea is currently functioning as what it calls the Research Institute of Humanity.
The Research Institute of Humanity.
Yeah. The claim is that the nation serves as a literal incubator, entirely dedicated to 100% cultivating these Hongik Ingen leaders to figure out how people should live in the future.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that is a massively bold claim to make.
Oh, it's huge.
Like, out of the entire planet, how does the speaker justify South Korea being the specialized R&D department for humanity?
Oh.
If Earth is a giant corporation, why is this specific group of people tasked with developing the ultimate product, which, in this case, is figuring out how the rest of us should live?
The speaker builds this argument on a really specific biological and historical foundation. They introduce this term Cheonsen.
Cheonsen.
Right, which translates to heavenly descendants, or the children of God. Now, the baseline biological argument here is, well, it's fascinating.
What's the biology angle?
The text states that technically everyone on Earth is a child of God. The mechanism for this is actually cellular.
Wait, cellular? Like biological cells?
Yes. In this philosophy, biological cells are literally the material particles of God. All physical matter is just a different arrangement of divine energy.
Let me make sure I'm getting the mechanism right here. At a baseline, every single human is basically a highly concentrated mass of divine particles.
Precisely. The baseline is universal for everyone. But the speaker then drastically narrows the operational definition of Ch'ansun.
Okay, how so?
In the context of this lecture, it refers to a single ethnicity nation that endured immense, concentrated historical hardships over a very long period.
Oh, okay.
And crucially, they did this without ever scattering.
So the historical trauma isn't just a historical footnote. It serves an actual mechanical purpose in this framework.
Exactly. It acts as a pressure cooker. Think about how carbon turns into a diamond.
It needs heat and pressure.
Right. Immense sustained pressure over a long period. The source argues that centuries of hardship compressed this culture, increasing their spiritual and energetic density.
Wow. So they were basically forged.
Yes. This intense concentration was intentionally designed to prepare this specific group for a final global mission. They were forged to be these Hongik Ingen.
What's fascinating here is how that reframes the whole concept of leadership.
Right.
Because if you are forged in a pressure cooker to become a diamond, your purpose isn't to just sit on a throne and admire your own shine.
Not at all.
The source actually defines the leadership expected of these heavenly descendants as the exact opposite of arrogance.
Yeah, the text describes them as heavenly workers. And the phrasing used to describe their function is really intense.
What do they say?
They are expected to dedicate and essentially burn through their final hours entirely for the sake of others.
Burn through their final hours. That is
Aw.
wow.
It is a highly sacrificial, service-oriented mechanism. You don't hoard your energy, You act as fuel to illuminate the path for humanity.
Okay, so if these R&D researchers, these highly pressurized Hongik Ingen, are meant to guide the rest of us, what exactly are they guiding us towards?
That's the big question.
Because the source points to a stark semantic distinction about our very nature. It draws a very sharp line between a human, which in Korean is Ingan, and a person, which is Saram.
Right. And at first glance, you might assume this is just like a linguistic quirk.
Yeah, it's playing with vocabulary.
Exactly. But the speaker uses these two words to describe completely different states of being. It's the difference between two distinct evolutionary phases.
Because the source equates living as a human, an Ingan, to living in an animalistic state.
Yes.
It is described strictly as a phase of growth. And what do animals do? They consume. They take resources from their environment to build their own mass.
It is a fundamentally selfish phase, but importantly, the text notes it is a necessary phase.
Because you have to consume to grow.
Right. The problem only arises when the growth phase is physically and spiritually complete, but the behavior doesn't change.
You know, it makes me think of the metamorphosis of a butterfly.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Let's look at the mechanics of that. The human phase is the caterpillar. Its biological imperative is to consume leaves, to take and take until it reaches critical mass.
Just animalistic growth.
Exactly. But once it hits that maximum mass, the caterpillar doesn't just keep eating. It stops. It encases itself, fundamentally breaks down its own biology, and transforms into a butterfly.
And in the speaker's framework, that final elevated form is the person, the Saram.
Right. You stop taking and you start operating in a completely different paradigm. And the text says that when you finally become a person, you live close to a god.
We really need to unpack what living close to a god actually means mechanically here, though.
Yeah, because it's not just a metaphor.
No. In this metaphysical framework, individual human souls are referred to as individual gods. The term is gachisin.
Individual gods. I mean, that implies a staggering amount of inherent dormant power inside every person.
It implies immense power, yes, but it also implies a severe weakness, which is fragmentation.
Because we're separated.
Exactly. As individual gods, we possess creation-level energy, but we are separate, isolated units. The speaker argues that we cannot inherently be one entity.
So that's why the caterpillar has to become the butterfly.
Right. The entire reason the human must evolve into a person is so these individual fragmented gods can find the right path and align their frequencies.
I see.
When they unite their will and act as people living for humanity, their combined energy creates an exponential, massive power.
And the speaker uses a very definitive maxim for this, right?
Yes. The quote is, "Unite and live, scatter and die."
Unite and live, scatter and die. There is no middle ground in that equation at all.
None.
So what does this all mean for the ones who don't change? If uniting as a person is the ultimate necessary goal, what happens if the caterpillar refuses the transformation?
What's keeping them stuck, you mean?
Yeah, what happens when those meant-to-be people stay stuck in that animalistic human phase?
Well, the lecture treats this as an active critical emergency. The source points to a specific timeline.
Oh, right, the 2013 timeline.
Yeah, they claim that since 2013, so for over 10 years now, these potential leaders, these Hongik Inga, have been drifting.
Drifting instead of leading.
Exactly. Instead of doing the elevated sacrificial work they were pressurized and prepared for, they have remained trapped in the consumption phase. They are acting like regular humans.
Let me see if I understand the danger here, because the source introduces the concept of spiritual mass.
Right, their capacity.
Yeah, if you have been compressed in that historical pressure cooker, you have a massive capacity to hold energy.
Like a battery.
Exactly. Let's use an electrical analogy.
Oh.
Imagine you are a massive, high-voltage industrial battery. You have spent decades charging up. That was your growth phase. Your design purpose is to plug into the grid and discharge that power to run the city, which represents benefiting humanity.
But what happens if you refuse to plug in?
Well, the energy doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere.
Exactly. You are holding all this immense electrical potential, and if it has no external outlet, it turns inward.
The battery begins to dangerously overheat.
Right. The internal resistance builds up. The source claims that if this immense spiritual mass is left unchecked and unused, the resulting internal suffering becomes dramatic and exponential.
Because of the neglected duty.
Yes. The sheer weight of your unfulfilled destiny crushes you from the inside to the point where it can literally lead to suicidal thoughts.
Wow. That electrical analogy perfectly highlights how the speaker views the universe, though. This isn't about some deity punishing you for being bad.
No, it is a strict mechanical failure.
Right.
The speaker emphasizes that nature's laws operate with absolute, unforgiving precision. The exact phrase in the text is that nature operates with not even 0.1 millimeters of error.
Not even 0.1 millimeters.
Yeah. If you possess the mass and the capability of a leader, but you intentionally block the flow of that energy by living selfishly like an animal, nature guarantees your suffering.
You are a high-voltage machine operating in direct violation of your own circuitry.
Exactly. But conversely, doing the work you are destined for results in an incredibly joyful life.
And the text also presents a really fascinating paradox about greed here, doesn't it? It argues that dropping this animalistic desire to consume doesn't mean you end up with nothing.
It is the exact opposite. When you operate correctly without greed, nature actually supplies you with more resources to use joyfully.
More resources.
Yeah. Think about your electrical grid analogy. If you are plugged in and acting as a clear conduit, power flows through you continuously.
Right, you get to experience the joy of that energy passing through you to light up the city.
Exactly. Greed acts as a massive resistor in that circuit. It creates a bottleneck, and nature stops supplying you with resources because if it gave you more power while you were operating selfishly, you would just use that intense energy to damage the surrounding components, meaning other people.
So greed blows the fuse, while service creates a flawless, continuous circuit.
Beautifully put.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because this is where the lecture shifts from metaphorical concepts directly into hard spiritual physics.
Yes, the frequencies.
Right. When these individuals finally drop the resistance of greed, when they stop acting as humans and plug into that grid as people, they generate a specific, measurable output.
This is the absolute core of the philosophy, the discussion of frequencies and waves.
The text lays down a fundamental physical rule. Absolutely everything emits a wave. The speaker notes that even if you take a single invisible material particle and pull it apart, it automatically emits an electromagnetic wave.
You cannot exist without broadcasting a frequency.
But the crucial part is that these waves have different masses or qualities, entirely dependent on the intent of the source.
Right. The speaker uses a very grounded metaphor to explain the quality of these waves. They compare the wave emitted by a person living righteously for humanity to the wave created by hitting an empty oil drum with a stick.
Let's translate that metaphor into the electromagnetic physics the source is talking about. If you hit an oil drum, you create a massive, chaotic disturbance. It's loud, but it's pure static.
Right, just noise.
The lecture argues that a human living an animalistic, selfish life emits an electromagnetic spiritual wave that is exactly like that static.
It's a low-quality, heavy, chaotic frequency.
Exactly. It causes destructive interference. Yeah. But when a person lives correctly, completely without greed, doing the work they were designed for, their wave changes.
It loses that chaotic mass.
Yeah, it becomes a pure, refined, coherent frequency, like a perfectly synchronized laser beam.
And because these individuals possess such high spiritual mass, the scale of what that coherent laser frequency can accomplish is staggering.
It's huge.
The lecture outlines a literal chain reaction of resonance. When people unite their will and emit this pure frequency, the constructive interference first shakes the global village.
Yeah.
That highly organized vibration then extends outward and shakes the universe itself.
The whole universe.
Yeah. And ultimately, that universe-shaking wave reaches and shakes God and the ancestors.
It is a bottom-up flow of cosmic power, human behavior dictating the frequency of the universe. Which brings us to the ultimate, final destiny for these individuals.
The end goal.
Right. The text states that for 30% of these Hongik Ingen, this current life is their last lifetime.
Their very last one.
Yeah. If they successfully drop all their attachments and emit this pure frequency, their souls undergo a physical change. They become incredibly light, so light that they defy Earth's gravity.
It is the ultimate liberation from physical and spiritual laws.
We need a good way to visualize this mechanism. Let's think about a hot air balloon.
Ooh, I like that.
Attachments, greed, those selfish animalistic desires, those are the sandbags weighing you down. They're keeping your soul in a solid, heavy state, tethered to the electromagnetic and gravitational fields of Earth.
But by living your life entirely for others, you are throwing the sandbags overboard.
Exactly. You are systematically shedding those heavy, dense particles. You do this until your soul becomes so spiritually light, so lacking in heavy mass, that the natural laws of gravity literally cannot hold you anymore.
You become completely buoyant.
Right.
The speaker describes this state as becoming Qian Sin, or heavenly spirits.
Spirits.
Yeah, when this density shift occurs, you do not reincarnate on Earth. You float away into the universe. The mechanical laws that bind us, both the physical laws of the material body and the non-material laws of the earthly spiritual realm, they just completely dissolve.
Because you've finished your mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are permanently freed because you have finished your growth and discharged your ultimate purpose.
Escaping the cycle of reincarnation, not just through abstract enlightenment, but by literally altering your energetic density until you float away. I mean, it is a stunning concept.
It really is.
But for the rest of us, the 70%, or really anyone just trying to navigate the world right now, how does this framework apply to our immediate reality?
Well, this raises an important question about world peace. The speaker's conclusion draws a direct, unavoidable line between these individual frequencies and global geopolitics.
Really? How so?
The source states with absolute mechanical certainty that world peace is fundamentally impossible unless these leaders start living like people.
So peace has nothing to do with policy.
In this framework, zero. True peace isn't going to come from political treaties, economic sanctions, or, border negotiations.
It's energetic.
Yes. Peace is the direct physical and spiritual result of the correct, coherent electromagnetic frequency being emitted by humans who have evolved past their animalistic phase.
Wow.
If the high-mass individuals are emitting the chaotic, static frequency of a struck oil drum, the global village will be chaotic. It's unavoidable.
Because the waves are destructive.
Right. But if they emit the unified, pure frequency of a true person, the world falls into a peaceful resonance. It is just physics.
What an incredible architecture of ideas we've explored today. We started by looking at the biological claim of cells as divine particles, and South Korea's historical pressure cooker acting as the national incubator for the Hongik Ingen. We examined the necessary evolutionary leap from being a consuming, animalistic human to a fully realized person.
The caterpillar to the butterfly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we broke down the severe mechanical danger of unfulfilled spiritual mass. What happens when that high-voltage battery overheats?
The danger of inaction.
Right. And finally, we looked at the ultimate goal, generating a pure, universe-shaking frequency that sheds the heavy density of greed, allowing the soul to become light enough to escape reincarnation and Earth's gravity entirely.
It's a framework that completely recontextualizes the weight of our daily actions. Regardless of what you make of the historical or national claims, the mechanics of this philosophy demand self-reflection.
Absolutely.
And I think that leaves us with a highly provocative thought for you to consider.
Let's hear it.
Building on the source's rule that every single particle, every single action automatically emits a wave with a specific mass. Think about the invisible electromagnetic waves you are emitting right now.
Right now, in this moment.
Yes. Are the daily choices you make and the hidden intentions behind your actions creating the heavy, chaotic static of an oil drum being hit with a stick? Or are you, step by step, shedding that dense greed and starting to emit the lighter, pure, universe-shaking frequency of a true person?
A brilliant question to leave you with. The physical weight of our intentions might be far more literal than we ever realized. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We'll catch you next time as we continue to explore the fascinating ideas that shape our world.